welcome to the Early Educator podcast, where we talk about everything that you need when it comes to growing your business, overcoming obstacles, and making an impact on not only the children in your care, but to your community and your family. My name is Blake, and with me today to my right, we have Philip, the president of Our Daily Bread. We also have Cinta, who is the executive director of Our Daily Bread CACFP. And today we have a special guest with us. We have Miss Ellie Kittrell, and she is with United Way of Greater Knoxville. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Really Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Oh yeah. And so guys, how you guys doing? This is the first episode of 2023. So pretty excited. Yes. You guys doing good?
Yes.
Awesome. Glad you guys that we're all here. And 2023, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it feels good. I'm feeling good about this year. Mm. Feeling pretty good. I'm feeling very driven, motivated. Want to do better each year, right? And so, yeah. So like we said, we have Ellie with us here, and we just have, a couple questions for her, and think this is really something awesome she's a part of that we really think that the educators can really potentially benefit from and should know about. And so, yeah, if you don't mind, we should have a few questions for you. And so, can you tell us about United Way of Greater Knoxville and just the history and the mission behind it? And yeah, can you just tell us about that?
Yeah, great. Cool. So I'm actually relatively new to the United Way myself. So I've been there for about 18 months, but United Way has been around for 100 years. We just celebrated, United Way of Greater Knoxville. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary on December 2nd. And we've had a really big year kind of leading up to that celebration and a really big year as an organization transitioning our role within the community. Historically, United Way kind of started out as a community chest, right? It's sort of a centralized place to raise funds to support various nonprofit organizations tackling mostly basic need type projects and programs. And it's grown over the years and eventually kind of transitioned to a greater focus on education and health and financial stability for families in the various communities that United Way is located. I mean, really, we're all over the world. But we have a newer CEO, Matt Ryerson. He came on not quite 3 years ago. I think he's about 2.5 years in. And he really started setting the ground for transformation for our United Way. And said, it's time for us to transition into a modern United Way, 100-year-old modern United Way. Yeah. And we want to really start tackling systemic change and we need to not just throw money at helping solve problems. Money is important and it's important fuel, but we also need to help our communities and our stakeholders better align with one another so that those dollars are stewarded in the highest and best use possible for the needs of our community. And to do that, we have to hear from people in our community, and people in our community have to have leadership and agency in the strategies and decisions that are being made on their behalf. And that's what we need to support. So there's been a lot of change in the last few years, and I'm excited to be part of it, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. So how exactly does your organization determine like which programs and which initiatives that it wants to support, and what do you have any examples of some like recent ones that you have that you guys are particularly proud of?
Sure. So historically, we've utilized a community needs assessment to really help us understand and prioritize, what's going on in Knoxville, Knox County, and the surrounding area that needs the most attention and therefore, financial support or capacity building support. Okay. So we're still doing that, and but a few years ago, they did a community assessment and they took a little bit of a different direction and said, what are what are the top 3 areas that keep coming up to the top? And those, it was early care and education, food security, and affordable housing. And so the leadership team at United Way decided to invest in 3 systems, those 3 systems areas, and bring on system leads to tackle effectively a collective impact process in each of those systems areas. So I was hired as the system lead for early care and education. We've got Kimberly Pettigrew over food security, and Yolanda, who is over affordable housing, and she came up through House Knox. So within each of those areas, we are doing a much deeper dive than what United Way has done previously in terms of that community needs assessment. We're really drilling down into much deeper levels, and effectively trying to map out what the asset, not only the needs are in the communities, but what are the assets? What are the things that are really going well and need continued and ongoing support? What are those needs? What are those goals that we're trying to accomplish, but we can't because we have, some significant barrier in place, transactional, systemic, institutional, attitudinal, understanding what those barriers are. And then pulling in our stakeholders, the people that we're trying to impact, the practitioners that are supporting, et cetera, pulling those groups together and identifying what those solutions are and prioritizing them. And so we're all doing that in early care and education, food, and housing. And those recommendations are going to now drive a pretty significant aspect of how United Way applies the raised dollars.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it is exciting to see that United Way, you take an organization, first of all, they've always had great leadership, for one. For two, I mean, you just mentioned 100 years. I mean, that's some serious history.
Yeah.
But it's just great to see them invest into this space, because a lot of the child care educators that we serve, that is always an issue. Do they have enough representation? And I just think the investment that United Way is making, through the research and not just monetary investments, but just like you said, just to listen to the community. What are the needs, and what are your challenges? What are your, wins? What are your, and your challenges as well. So I think those things are great to see from an organization like United Way, that they really are invested in the community in this space. So this is, obviously this is the space where we thrive and work, but it's great to see.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So are you finding, though, in this, I guess, different way you're coming up with doing problem solving, I guess it is.
Yeah.
Are you having different partners or new partners in working with and doing this? And I guess my other question is, in the creative problem solving way that you are you coming up with different partners, new partners?
Yeah, I think so. I know for just the early care and education system, in the last 18 months, we've had interactions with over 500 individuals, over 90 different organizations and representatives, and I would say, leadership, decision makers, power brokers at every level, all the way from federal, all the way down to, parent caregivers, child care administrators, all the way up and down that system. That's very intentionally trying to interact at all levels. So I would say in the last 2 years, United Way has really grown our interactions, particularly with like grassroots organizations, and I'm trying to think. There's one particular fund. It's a community solutions fund that we have, and I think a couple of years ago we had maybe 7 organizations that were listed. They were all grassroots. The intention of that fund is more grassroots oriented, and we're now like over 40. So that, that's pretty significant growth in building trust and deepening those relationships. So yes, we're meeting with new organizations, but I think more importantly, we're setting up a process to build trust with them longer term. A good chunk of the work that all 3 systems areas are focused on is coalition building, and how do we continuously communicate with these organizations and these stakeholders and keep everybody focused on a shared agenda and a shared sense of how we measure accomplishments and toward that agenda. And so that is helping us develop those new relationships as well. I think another piece that is driving value in terms of what United Way brings to our communities is we're pretty neutral. United Way is neutral politically, and that's pretty meaningful right now in Knoxville, Knox County. And so we are able to facilitate and just convene people together in a neutral way, and say, hey, there's this opportunity, or, there's this strategy we think is, that we think is going to help and help drive a lot of change that's needed, right? We've asked everybody up and down the system if they think this is going to work. They think it's going to work. And so now let's put that plan in place, and I'm going to pull this organization together, this organization. Let's do this all together collaboratively. And United Way can do that neutrally, and also then potentially seek external funding, right? We can go out from outside Knoxville, Knox County, and try and drive more diverse revenues into the area to help drive that change. We were able to do that with a tutoring program. As an example, we brought in $4.5 million to provide high dosage, low ratio tutoring, and we pulled YMCA together, Boys and Girls Clubs together, our foundation, our school system together, and some other after school organizations together. We wrote the grant, we brought the money in from outside of the area. It all goes to those partners, right? But individually, any one of those organizations wouldn't have been able to apply for that. They wouldn't have been able to bring in that funding on their own. But us pulling everybody together, we were able to do that. So that's a very small example, but hopefully something we can keep building on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a
I
big
think it's
deal.
pretty significant.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
That's nothing small at all about that.
Well, I don't feel
means
it's
a
like
lot.
super
Yeah.
small, but when I think about the broader system
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
that we're
Yeah.
trying to support, it's small.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
a great start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's community, that's
Yeah,
relationship
absolutely.
building.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
know, that's all of that together. You know, and that's a big deal because that takes time. I know, but that's the
Right.
start of something huge. So that is a big deal.
Well, I'm sure as nonprofit leaders, right? This nonprofit, often you can get really caught up in the doing, right? It's hard. It's hard to carve out time for the vision casting, for the research and the that space for innovative thinking and collaboration,
It is.
right?
It really is.
And so to have a United Way come in alongside of you and say, hey, let us help you with that. And let us act as a backbone support that's going to connect you to this organization and this organization and this organization. Let us carry some of that weight for you and carve out some of that space for you.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
You know, it's about community, us all working together, especially for the common goal of the children.
Yes.
And that's huge.
Yes,
So, yeah.
absolutely.
That's a big help.
Right?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: how has the organization adapted to like the challenges that COVID-19 brought, and kind of what initiatives have you guys implemented to support those affected by the crisis?
I would say COVID, the impact of COVID and the magnifying glass that it placed on systemic inequities is really kind of that spark that led this change for the organization to want to shift its focus and really start to take a much deeper dive into the systems level aspects of solving problems. United Way was uniquely positioned again to help distribute crisis funding during COVID. An organization I previously worked with was one of the recipients of some of that crisis funding, and it allowed us to change from a children's museum to a child care provider, a learning pod, safe child care provider, within a matter of a few weeks. Wow. And as an example, and so I think United Way started hearing from nonprofit leaders in and around Knox County, like, hey, that was really incredible. The fact that we didn't, there were a lot of restrictions or, red tape, bureaucracy, things that were kind of, they cleared the path for those of us that were really kind of stepping into the fold and trying to drive an innovative solution in crisis response. Mm-hmm. So I think there were lessons learned from that. And certainly in the 3 areas of focus, we see long-term impact from COVID. And we're trying to address that. I mean, we really are. I mean, unfortunately, in Knox County, we have, poverty is our poverty levels is the great divide, right? And we have 40% of our county that are they're considered economically disadvantaged. So they're at 200% federal poverty level or below. And when we start to look at the Black community versus the white community, the disparity in median household income is significant. It's one of the largest gaps in the state of Tennessee, actually. There's about 113% difference in Black median household income in Knox County and white median household income. When you look at something, just that one point, just that one data point, but you look at the impact that data point has across all of those systems and how COVID just added rocket fuel to those disparities, we have a lot of work to do that, COVID just highlighted, but they were well in place for the last 100 years. The impact of redlining on Knoxville, the impact of urban removal, particularly on Black communities in our area, that's been around, those crises have been in place for years. Unfortunately, COVID just amplified it. The positive side of that is we're starting to have some more constructive conversations around it and recognizing, okay, we can't just turn away from this truth anymore. We have to take it head on and address it.
Yeah, I know a lot of our child care educators, they really struggled with it, with, a lot of the parents. I did expose a lot of things as far as the workforce.
Yes.
Who was actually essential, who could afford to miss work, who could work from home, who, was essential and that type thing. And I think too, another thing that was exposed was the how essential childcare workers really are.
Right.
Because a lot of times they're so undervalued. I think this really, shined a light on the value of our childcare educators, because a lot of us was able to, go in, shut down, and work from home, and a lot of us had that luxury, or maybe social distance in an office, but child care educators said, hey, bring your children, bring your babies, we're here, we're open, and they really took that head on. And in times of uncertainty, there was times when there was no vaccine in sight.
Right.
There was times when people were deathly ill, and obviously a lot of people dying. And the child care educator said, I'm still here.
I'm still here. I'm essential.
Yeah.
And so we were very proud of that. And we're very proud of the educators that we serve, because they're the heroes. They stood up.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And some of them did, and some of them stayed open with no income,
Right.
and just barely made it, barely were able to stay open, but still were there. Like you said, 100% taking care of our children.
Because they put the kids first.
Exactly. Because children are first.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it was a very, very difficult and very tough time, but they still were there.
And we're still
are
seeing
essential.
repercussions. My apologies. But we're still seeing the repercussions from those that closed because they had to. And, obviously we're still very much in crisis level in the childcare industry in particular from a workforce standpoint. And, that's not going to change until we have some pretty significant policy and legislative changes. We can't have our our early care and education workforce earning the lowest 5 to 10% of wages in the U.S. It makes no sense. I mean, not even from obviously from a feel-good place, that doesn't make sense. These are our babies, these are our kids. Like, we want the best for them. But if you can start tackling it from a brain science perspective, you can tackle it from an economic impact perspective. The most powerful dollar we can invest is in early childhood. We get a 13-to-1 return on investment for those kiddos that are economically disadvantaged, right? It's 7-to-1, just average. 7-to-1, it's the highest return on investment you will have on any program trying to impact the human brain, right? And that just goes down over time. That return on investment goes down barely 1-to-1 even when we get to high school, right? And yet, where are so much of our dollars going, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really, if there was an alien that came onto planet Earth and looked at U.S. policy, where we spend our money, what would they say we care most about?
I would say stuff, entertainment,
Right?
stuff.
I mean, it's so true. I mean, that's our most prized possession.
It's our most prized
possession. I mean, that should be where I first am willing to invest my money, my dollars, in my child. It really, truly is. I mean, it is.
I know when our children were in childcare, it was near and dear to us.
Yeah.
But it was near and dear to Senta, because she was like, we're paying that first.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
first fruits.
That's first fruits of our labor. It's going for their care. We want to make sure that, if we are ever behind on anything, it's going to be something else, but it won't be childcare.
Right.
And I love that approach, because like Senta said, it should be, we say it's our most near and dear possession, most prized possession. So,
and it's our future. I mean, it is our future. And, the investments we're making in early childhood is setting the tone for how that child becomes a parent and, how they become a leader in their community. And it's a multi-generational investment for sure. We are just having the wrong conversation. We're having the wrong conversations, certainly in Knox County. We're having the wrong conversations at the state level, at the federal level. Again, in my opinion, we are, and that's a lot of the work that we're focused on is trying to drive different conversations and there's a lot of policy and advocacy and education work happening from United Way in these topic areas. The workforce piece is critical. We've been working on a 3-year action plan. It's called a Bright Steps Action Plan. We've had technical assistance and support with Tennesseans for Quality Early Education. We're one of 6 communities across the state of Tennessee that are rolling out these 3-year action plans around early care and education. We're focused on 3 key early childhood domains: health, mental health, and development on track beginning at birth, supported and supportive parents and parents, caregivers, and communities, and high quality early education environments for children 0 through 5 outside the home. So those are kind of like the 3 high level focus areas. Each community across the state is going to have their own way in how they kind of tackle those domains. In Knox County, again, we're wrapping up an 18-month planning process, and we have about 7 key priorities that have strategies that have been prioritized that we're focused on. A lot of the focused work is around workforce development and increasing capacity of high quality childcare spots in Knox County. We're focused on trying to strengthen that transition from pre-K to kindergarten, and helping identify developmental needs, more consistently for every kindergartner going into Knox County schools before they transition into that K through 12 system. We're focused on increasing capacity for family-centered mental health, and also for early intervention as well. There's some of the key points that are going to be a focus for us for the next 3 years. Embedded in all of those is advocacy and education. And again, we're just trying to create shared language, create a shared sense of commitment and understanding just how critical early childhood is for all of us. So, yeah.
So you say increasing capacity of high quality childcare. What is your main focus there?
Oh, well, we don't have a when you say, like, in terms of like the provider type, or do you mean like my focus or our focus in quality? What do you mean?
Are you working with childcare centers? Are you pouring your funding into the childcare centers, in what way?
So it'll be multifaceted. So I think some of the initiatives will be more geared towards the existing providers and strengthening them, and so that will look like advocacy efforts and driving wages. Trying to work on things to increase wages consistently, and also kind of going back to the child care tax credit, realm. It's also looking like strengthening curriculum and understanding of quality programs like Our Daily Bread, how they come in, how they are a critical part of what creates a high quality early care and education environment for kiddos and their families, right? Because a big piece of that is how we interact with our families and communities around what's happening in the life of that child, and bring them alongside of what's needed developmentally. So we are making recommendations for different funds that would go in to support those efforts. We're also looking at strategies to increase just the number of seats and the capacity. And one of the things that we're looking at is place-based childcare. So pulling together, a child care provider, and helping them set up classrooms at, business sites, church sites, school sites. And we're going to be piloting that here in this next year, it's called a micro center network with YMCA. And we are going into Hillcrest Healthcare, senior services provider. There are 3 different classrooms that we'll be rolling out there. We're going into a Knox County elementary school and Pellissippi State, Hardin Valley campus. And we're having other conversations about, other classrooms that we would put in and around Knox County. Hopefully, just that pilot alone will help us add about 180 spots over the next few years. So that's good. We need a lot more than that. But one thing I'm excited about with Pellissippi is that we're working on, again, that workforce development piece. How can we strengthen the attractiveness of pulling students into early care and education as a career? And so we're working together to kind of align their practicum needs to the child care centers, and putting in some incentives and things like that in place to help, again, get more people excited about going into that field long term.
Yeah, that seems to be one of the major pain points with our educators. Just getting staffed, or not even full staff. I mean, just at an adequate number to
function,
at somewhat of a break even, slightly profit level. It's one of the biggest challenges that they're having right now, just staffing. So now the site that you guys will be opening, I'm sure you guys will be working closely with Tennessee Child Care Licensing. So there'll be some.
It's a slow process at the moment.
And they're a very good organization to work with.
I mean, we've got, this is one of those opportunities for advocacy at the state level, right? We don't have enough. I forget what their actual title is, but the coordinators that are responsible for the pre-licensure process, we've got only one representative for everything east of Nashville. So, right now in a pilot, right, we're trying to get, it's basically 5 different licenses. And, we're in it several months in. We think it's going to be about 8 months before we're done with the pre-licensure process. So that's something that has to improve, right? If we can find an individual that wants to go into this and wants to open a small business, and I look at it as very entrepreneurial and your small business owners, and small business owners are the lifeblood of our economy, and we should be investing in child care providers in that way and thinking of them in that way. And so it's just not okay that we don't have, that it takes that long. I had a conversation with somebody that's trying to open up a child care center that will have about 75 seats in Northwest Knoxville, and she's over 2 years in and still not open.
Wow.
So heart's there, the vision, the passion, the tenacity is there. There's just a lot of barriers, and it's going to take systems work, not just in Knox County, but our partnership across the state and with TQEE and others to tackle some of those broader barriers. So it's going to take time. We've taken a long time to get into this mess. It's going to take us a minute. One interesting statistic that I at some point pulled up, and I don't know if this is exactly accurate, but in like 1960-ish, 68, only 12% of households had both adults working outside of the home, right? That number now is in that 68 to 72%. right? So that's a really short period of time for an entire industry to be developed and change. And it's been a very female-driven industry, very low wage earning industry, and it has not had the right, focus and advocacy, I think, placed on it. And we've got to change that for it to work for our families, and more importantly for our kiddos.
Got a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm. Were there any other plans or goals that you guys have that you wanted to mention, or anything you want to mention?
Yeah, so the Bright Steps Action Plan, we are going to have our official release event on February 28th, and I would love for you all to be there, so I'll send you an invitation for that. And we would love for several of our early educators to be there too, if and we are offering some stipends for those that want to join us, but it would be otherwise a financial hardship on them to be able to join us. So we're going to try and kick it off in a big way, and again, highlight what are the needs in early care and education in Knoxville, Knox County. What are some of the things that we're trying to work on, and some ways start the conversation on, and in some ways really start moving the needle on. We are going to have a childcare focused symposium, kind of, we'll have the launch and release, and then we'll transition it into a childcare symposium, mainly a discussion of the latest childcare task force report from the state of Tennessee, and the Tennesseans for Quality Early Education childcare release as well, their report. We're going to dig into that and show what it looks like here in Knox County, and again, what the Bright Steps Action Plan is doing about it. Yeah.
That will be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Philip and Cynthia, do you guys have anything that you guys wanted to mention or ask or anything?
Well, no. Yeah. I was going to ask, like, what role? Some of the existing child care educators, they're mainly sole proprietorships around town, and it's just like anything else. If this is my business, what role will United Way? Are they coming alongside this educator? Some are, a little worried about, well, they're gonna build these large sites, and they're going to maybe, would I lose business?
Right.
Or, what message do you have for that educator, like the local educator?
So it would be a major mistake for United Way or any other organization to come in and say that, large scale childcare centers are the solution. That's not the right solution for every family. And so I think one of the recommendations that we have in the plan actually is to create a family provider shared services network where we can kind of centralize some back office supports and resources and group, maybe 15 to 20 family care providers together, where maybe they share, HR, accounting, purchasing, on a much smaller scale, like recognizing that the small business need. You still have all those things, but it doesn't make sense to hire a full-time person, and really who has the time to even develop, individual contractor relationships and things like that. But if there are some services that we can come alongside and centralize to benefit our family care providers, to help strengthen the business side of things for them, while also pulling their operating costs down and helping them just feel supported. That's something we really are interested in doing. We are also having conversations about approaching childcare from a standpoint of an entrepreneurial mindset and training program. So I've had some initial conversations with Knox Area Urban League and their Co-Starters program. And, could we potentially have a family care provider Co-Starters program as an example? So that would, kind of provide some business training on the front end and development, and potentially some startup type of funds to incentivize folks to get into the family care business. As an example, Knox Entrepreneurial Center has a similar program as well that we've taken a look at. And the other thing I think is really critical for us to address, and this is any child care provider, it doesn't matter which setting, is the mental health and healing that needs to happen, right? We've all gone through a very tumultuous period of time, and we have several communities that have been going through a tumultuous and difficult time for many years, and we have to recognize the trauma that's happened, and honor and create spaces for healing. And so that's something that often gets dismissed when we're talking about our early care and education professionals, our teachers, our service, our broader service providers. Is, gosh, where's the space for them to recognize like what's happening in their own lives, and in the early care and education profession that translates into how we care for kids. Right?
Absolutely.
So we have to create those opportunities for healing,
because we haven't allowed that space for self-care.
right?
And it also absolutely does reflect onto our kids, and kind of a networking community for childcare providers. I see it, I get it, but also I think that's a piece that, just like in our space as a sponsoring organization, it kind of, I'm not sure if it happens a lot of times in the childcare community, is when they come together and network together and share information, not just share information about childcare, share information about children, share information about parents, just the whole space. So I mean, I see that as something that's much needed, especially for all that information, but also the huge piece too is that self-care. Even in this space, as with our staff, but that self-care is so important and so dismissed, because we have a whole 2 years that our children missed of not going to school. So what happens to those 2 years that our children, well, they were educated, but it was behind the screen.
Yeah.
So they didn't have that.
Not the same.
No, they didn't have that personal
Yeah.
interaction.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that we need to really take into consideration.
For sure. And the Knoxville Association for Child Care and Early Education, CACFP, they've been doing a great job, I think. They've been growing in this convening of child care providers and providing professional development opportunities and conferences. We've been a part of that. And I've been really impressed with some of the conversations that they're broaching, in those sessions. It's great. And, hopefully we're going to see more of that. Where we have an organization that is doing the work, United Way isn't coming in and trying to replace any of that. That's a part of that system mapping and understanding what our assets and needs are. Is, we don't want to get in the way of anybody or replace or duplicate anything. We want to come alongside those organizations that are doing the work. And if it's an asset to the community, how can I strengthen what you're doing? So like that coalition building, that professional development, in that situation, we're going to come alongside like a Casey and help them do what they're doing, just at an even bigger scale. And I would say it's the same for those child care providers. We are actively looking at ways to support and not harm with unintended consequences of our decisions.
And we certainly understand, they had the passion behind starting that business.
Yeah.
And it's likewise, like with our agency, this is something that, that we started and from the inception built, and then you have a tendency to just want to bottle it up and hold on to it and not get others involved. But like once we open ourselves up to partnerships and other agencies, other nonprofit, for-profit agencies, I mean, we could do so much more for the people that we serve, and it just opened up so many doors once we opened up and said, hey, we're here. Yeah, this is who we are and what we have. How can we come alongside you? And I love that about United Way. I think it's going to be great for educators. I know it can be a little scary for some but because this is what they've always done.
Right.
And it's been mine. And, I don't want anybody else to get involved. But I think it's great. I think it's much needed. Our educators need that support. I mean, we're just so much stronger together.
Yeah.
So we're definitely looking forward to what's to come.
Thank you. We want to support people the way they want to be supported. That's the big thing. And it's going to take a lot more listening and understanding to really get to the heart of that. So it's a process.
Absolutely. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, awesome. Ellie, thank you so much for being here with us. Is there like a email or anything number that anybody can reach you or United Way?
Yeah, absolutely. So my email is kittrelle@unitedwaynox.org. KITTRELLE @unitedwaynox.org.
Awesome. Well, there you go, people. There you go. You guys have anything else you wanted to say, mention, anything?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks
you.
for coming.
Thank you.
It's been a great conversation.
Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. We have more planned to come. And so, yeah, we're really excited for this year. And again, thank you so much for being here. You guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you guys in the next one.